There's a moment in every believer's life when they realize that God has chosen them for something greater, something beyond what they ever imagined. If you're listening to this, I want you to hear this truth. God doesn't choose based on how perfect we are, how many accolades we've accumulated, or how much influence we have in the world. He chooses those who are willing. He chooses those whose hearts are open to his purpose. And when he chooses you, he doesn't just leave you to stumble along. No, he equips you, shapes you, and fills you with his spirit, making you his vessel, a vessel meant to carry his glory and purpose into a world in desperate need of it. You might be wondering, what does it mean to be a vessel for God? A vessel is simply something that carries something else. It holds a treasure, a purpose, or a message that needs to be delivered. And as God's vessel, you carry his message of hope, redemption, and grace. But here's what you need to understand. When God chooses you to be his vessel, it's not just for the sake of filling you with his spirit and sending you out. He does something deep inside of you. He purifies you, fills you with his power, and shapes you for a purpose that will not only transform your life, but the lives of those around you. You are not just here to exist. You are here to be a part of God's plan, to do the work he has called you to do, no matter your age, your background, or your circumstances. God doesn't make mistakes, and he has a purpose for you, right where you are in this very season of your life. Being God's vessel doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you won't face challenges, but it does mean that he has set you apart. He has called you, and he is with you every step of the way. So, if you ever felt like you don't matter, like your life is just passing by, or like you don't know where you fit into God's plan, this is your moment. God has chosen you. And in this video, we're going to dive deep into what that really means, what God does when he chooses you to be his vessel, and how your life can be transformed as you walk in that calling. Get ready to see yourself in a whole new light as God's chosen vessel for his purpose. 1. He transforms your heart. When God calls you to be his vessel, the first thing he does is transform your heart. This transformation is not simply about making you a better person. It's about changing you from the inside out to reflect his love, grace, and will. God starts with your heart because everything flows from there. When he calls you, he knows you're not perfect. He knows your flaws, your weaknesses, and your limitations. Yet he still chooses you. And he doesn't leave you in your current state. He works on your character, refining you to align with his purpose. God does this transformation through his Holy Spirit, which empowers you to let go of past hurts, insecurities, and sinful patterns. He replaces the old self with a heart that desires his will above all else. Remember, the Apostle Paul, once a persecutor of Christians, was radically transformed when God called him to be his vessel. Paul went from being a fierce enemy of the faith to one of its greatest champions because God changed his heart. As God works on your heart, he molds you to be more like Jesus. This transformation is not always easy, and sometimes it's painful, but it's necessary for fulfilling the calling God has placed on your life. He doesn't just want your hands or your mouth. He wants your heart. When your heart is aligned with God, the work you do becomes an expression of his love, and you can be a powerful vessel for his glory. So, be open to his transformation. He is shaping you for something great. 2. He equips you with the tools you need. When God chooses you to be his vessel, the second thing he does is equip you with the tools you need. God doesn't call us to do something without also providing the necessary gifts and abilities to carry out the task. Take David, for example. When he was chosen to be king, he wasn't yet the mighty warrior known for defeating giants, nor was he the skilled ruler the nation would need. He was just a young shepherd boy. But God equipped him with courage, skill, and a deep trust in him. It wasn't just David's slingshot that defeated Goliath. It was the power of God working through him. God gave him the tools needed for his divine assignment. In your life, God has already equipped you with specific gifts, talents, and skills. These aren't by accident. Whether the gift of leadership, compassion, teaching, or encouragement, God has already placed these qualities within you. They may seem small or insignificant now, but remember, it's not about how great you think the tools are, but how willing you are to use them for God's purposes. God sees what you can't see. He knows what you need before you even ask. Maybe you're facing a situation where you feel underqualified, uncertain, or unsure. But when God calls you, he doesn't make mistakes. The gifts and tools you need are already in place. and He will help you recognize them. The key is to trust in His provision and be willing to step out in faith, knowing He will equip you for the task at hand. The tools may come in unexpected forms, but rest assured, God will provide exactly what you need at just the right time to fulfill His calling on your life. 3. He strengthens you for the journey. When God chooses you to be His vessel, He doesn't just equip you with the tools you need, He also strengthens you for the journey. Following God's call isn't always easy. There will be challenges, obstacles, and moments when you feel like giving up. But God doesn't leave you to walk this path on your own. He gives you the strength to endure. The Apostle Paul, when he was called to spread the gospel, faced immense persecution, imprisonment, and hardship. Yet he boldly declared, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Philippians 4, verse 13. Paul's strength didn't come from his own abilities, but from God's supernatural empowerment. When God calls you, He provides the strength you need, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. There will be times when you feel weak, weary, or overwhelmed by the task at hand. That's when God's strength is most apparent. He promises to renew your strength when you wait on Him, Isaiah 40, verse 31. This doesn't mean the journey will always be easy, but it means you won't have to face it alone. God will carry you through. His strength becomes evident when you lean on Him and rely on His power instead of your own. God also strengthens you by surrounding you with a supportive community. You don't have to walk this journey in isolation. The body of Christ is meant to encourage, pray for, and build each other up. God strengthens you through His word, prayer, and the encouragement of fellow believers. So, when you feel inadequate or tired, remember that God has already prepared you for the journey. He strengthens you every step of the way, and His power is made perfect in your weakness. Keep trusting in His strength to carry you forward, for He uses your weakness for His glory. One of the most powerful things God does when He chooses you to be His vessel is that He uses your weakness for His glory. This might seem paradoxical at first. Why would God use someone who feels weak, broken, or unqualified? But that's exactly how God works. In 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, Paul writes, "But He said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.' Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." God doesn't expect perfection. He doesn't wait for you to be fully equipped before calling you. Instead, He calls those who feel weak, insufficient, and unworthy, so that His power can be clearly seen. When you are weak, God's strength shines brightest. Think of Moses, who was reluctant to lead the Israelites because of his speech impediment, or Gideon, who thought of himself as the least in his family. Both were used powerfully by God, not in spite of their weaknesses, but because of them. God's strength is made perfect when you rely on Him, not your own abilities. When God calls you, He doesn't eliminate your weaknesses, but He empowers you to overcome them. He gives you the courage to keep moving forward, even when you feel inadequate. Your weaknesses become a stage for God to display His power and grace. Every time you step out in faith, even in your weakness, you give God the opportunity to show His glory. He uses your flaws and limitations to make His name known. So, don't be discouraged by your weaknesses. They are the very things God will use to magnify His greatness. Keep surrendering your weaknesses to Him, and watch how He transforms them into powerful testimonies of His grace. 5. He prepares you for greater purpose. The final thing God does when He chooses you to be His vessel is that He prepares you for a greater purpose. Being chosen by God is not just about the present moment. It's about preparing you for something far bigger. God's call on your life is never small, and He will always guide you toward a purpose that far exceeds your expectations. In Jeremiah 1, verse 5, God tells the prophet, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations." This shows that God has been preparing His vessels from before they were even born. Everything you've been through, the challenges, the trials, the victories, has been part of God's shaping process. He is preparing you for a mission, a divine assignment that will impact His kingdom. God's preparation doesn't always look like we expect. It may involve times of solitude, times of struggle, or times of training in unexpected places. But He is always equipping you, refining you and strengthening you. Think of David, who spent years tending sheep before God called him to lead a nation. Every day in the fields was preparation for his reign as king. God is never wasting your time. Even when you feel like you're in a season of waiting or uncertainty, trust that he is using that time to refine your character, deepen your faith, and prepare you for a greater purpose. As you submit to God's process, you will discover that your life has more significance than you could have ever imagined. When you are chosen by God, he prepares you for a purpose that will have eternal impact. Keep trusting the process and watch as he leads you toward the fulfillment of his perfect will for your life. Conclusion: God's choice to use you as his vessel is a sacred calling. When he selects you, it's not just the here and now. It's a divine invitation to be part of his eternal plan. From the very moment he sets his eyes on you, God begins a work that transforms, refines, and equips you for greater purposes. As his vessel, you are not merely a tool. You are his representative, his hands and feet on this earth, carrying his love, his message, and his power. Throughout the Bible, we see countless examples of ordinary people who were called by God to do extraordinary things. He took Moses, a man with a speech impediment, and made him a leader of nations. He took David, a shepherd boy, and made him a king. He took Paul, once a persecutor of Christians, and transformed him into one of the greatest apostles. God has never chosen the qualified. He has always chosen the willing. So, when you feel unworthy, remember that God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for a surrendered heart. When you feel weak or insufficient, understand that it is precisely in your weakness that God's strength is made perfect. And when you face challenges and hardships, take heart. For those are the moments God is using to refine you and prepare you for his greater purposes. God doesn't choose you to leave you the same. He chooses you to shape you into a vessel that reflects his glory and advances his kingdom. Your life, with all its ups and downs, is being used by God to fulfill his eternal purpose. So, stand firm in the knowledge that you are not just chosen. You are being prepared, equipped, and empowered to do great things for the glory of God. The journey may not always be easy, but rest assured, you are never alone. God is with you, shaping you, and leading you to your greater purpose. What steps will you take today to allow God to use you fully as his vessel?